All right, how's it going? My name is Matt Barr. You listen to the Looking Sideways Action Sports podcast. It's the show where I try and uncover the most interesting stories in action sports and other related endeavours. Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoy it. If it's your first visit to my little corner of the internet, you might want to check out my website, www.wearelookingsideways.com. You'll find over 140 episodes of interviews with the great and the good of the action sports world. Full show notes to every episode. There's a blog on there. There's a lot of stuff to get through, basically. So go and have a look if you enjoy this episode. All right, so my guest this week is South African surfer Mikey February. I'm going to call him Mikey because that's what everyone seems to do. Let's get the facts out of the way first. Mikey came up through the contest circuit. As he explained during our conversation, it's really the only way to try and forge your sponsorship and forge a career for somebody from South Africa. It's a well-worn path, obviously. He really came to global prominence as the first non-white African to make the WSL. Obviously, that's a very reductive take on his career, but for obvious reasons, that milestone carries a lot of symbolism and a lot of significance, and on its own would have been enough to catapult Mikey to global renown. But when you factor in his inimitable style, it does appear to be scientifically impossible to discuss Mikey's style without using words like inimitable. Then you've got one of the most intriguing and occasionally polarising characters in today's professional surfing world. I had a chat with my old mate Ben Mundy before this one, ex-guest of this podcast, ex-editorial at Tracks magazine. He said to me via WhatsApp, well, he's smarter than the average surfer for what that's worth, but I suppose competition v free surfer is the well-worn narrative. He's good enough for top level, probably too interested in alternative crafts to beat hard-nosed pros. I've seen him destroy waves in competitions all over the world, always has a unique style, but he's made mistakes, fell off. I reckon he's just gotten on twins and gotten a bit jiggy with it. He's super talented. So that's Ben's take. And I think I'm right in saying that Mikey did a year on the tour. Not a long time, basically, before bowing out to follow that, as Ben Mundy puts it, classic contest to free surf arc, which has been such a feature of some of the most legendary surf careers of all. And to be honest, while right at some of the most legendary snowboarding careers of all, the contest to stylish free spirit paradigm, let's say. The difference with Mikey is he did it much more quickly than most, and he's never quite fitted the mold of the professional surf career, which is why he tends to get asked a lot of the same stuff, really. I've mentioned the style thing, but what always comes across from him is obvious comment, he's just very, very into surfing, and he's also used the platform that he's built up now, as I'm going to say it again, a free surfer, to explore some properly interesting territory through the trips that he does, through the stuff that he puts out. And, he explains a lot about this during our conversation. It's one of the things that make him such an intriguing character, and why I was really interested in chatting to him for the show. I'm not going to say much more for now, as I'll be back at the end for a bit more of the regular housekeeping corner. But for now, here's me and Mikey February. Enjoy. So how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very good, thank you. I just got back from Indonesia, so that was kind of nice. But yeah, it's nice to be home. It's weird that it's already the end of the year. It's strange.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's nearly a year. I was thinking about this the other day. It's like nearly a year since the beginning of the full-on lockdown, isn't it? It's like 3 months till March, where I'm assuming it was the same
Yeah,
in South Africa. Like, it all kicked off in March.
yeah, it's
Um,
crazy.
it's
Yeah,
been time's been like really kind of warped, hasn't it, this year? It's really bizarre.
it has. I mean, yeah, like you said, like I look on the news and stuff, and it's like since we had our first lockdown, it's been like 250 odd days, which is crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're back at home now, and is that Cape Town?
Yeah, back in home in Cape Town. It's been nice. I've been here. It's the first time, obviously, like everyone else, it's the first time I've been home for this long, and it's been cool. It's been very different, but it's been really nice.
Is this like the least you've traveled since you were a kid?
Yeah, definitely. Since I was maybe like, call it like, I don't know, 14, 15. I mean, it's like the first time actually noticing like the different seasons and actually being here to like just, you know, visually kind of see the change in like in the trees and just everything. It's actually something that yeah, I don't even think about, but it's kind of cool to be here and experience it all.
Yeah, I mean, because I was thinking about that today. Actually, I was talking to a friend about it. Yeah, this is definitely the least I've traveled. I'm going to say since I was 16, which is nearly 30 years, which is kind of
Wow.
frightening. Uh, and one of the things I've quite enjoyed, like what you're saying, like the fact that I've been at home for obvious reasons, because
Yeah.
it's been great to experience it. But equally, I kind of realized travel is also like it's a really good release valve in a lot of ways.
Mm,
Like
for sure.
to shift, to get away, to see different people, to have different experiences. I know it sounds like a really obvious thing to say, but I
No.
kind of realized that being gone has been an interesting experience. You know what I mean? Because you've like it's definitely helps in a lot of ways. I think for me
Yeah.
personally, like the travel aspects, like forget like go to see the places, doing the things that you do, whether you're surfing or whether whatever. But the things that you get from travel on a sort of internal, personal level, I always
Hmm.
took for granted. It's only this year that I sort of was like, yeah, okay, I've actually really missed that. Have you kind of found that?
Definitely. I mean, that's pretty much, yeah, like you said, you've been doing, I mean, it's little, I mean, the last time you haven't traveled this much has been in like 30 years and definitely feel, I don't know, I mean, there's positives and negatives too, because obviously it's great to be home and experience what you don't normally experience every other year. But I mean, I definitely felt it even just on this last trip now, going to Indonesia for 2.5 weeks. I mean, that already was just like this crazy. I mean, obviously going there was like an escape from COVID because you're on a boat or you're on an island where there's no masks or any of that. And um, yeah, I think you're just so used to experiencing different things and not kind of having, you're almost like not used to being as comfortable as you are at home all the time. So it makes you think differently, feel different. Obviously it's been great to have that comfort of home, but again, you just used to, you know, being exposed to new things and different people and different, just everything. Um, and when you go through that year in and year out, it's definitely a big change.
And how was the trip? Because that was the stab trip, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, obviously, definitely the best surf trip I had of 2020. But I mean, just being able to go to Indonesia. I mean, I've never been to the Mentawais before in my life, and obviously, growing up as a surfer, that's like the ultimate. Um, and the whole time, like I've seen how much more crowded it's become and how many more people are there, and it's just like everything I hear is like, it's like crowded. There's lots of boats, all that kind of stuff, and it was really special to kind of have my first experience in a time like this, where there was like it's kind of like going, way back and getting to experience it like in the beginning, and so that was pretty special, and it was obviously, you know, being able to go on a surf trip this year was also great. So it was pretty epic. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, it's like proper one-off. Assuming that things do start moving back to normal. Yeah, like it's a unique little situation, right? Probably never get that again.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was wild. I mean, never been there before, but then when you were there and you just saw not that many other boats, not that many people, and you just had these perfect waves, like just to ourselves, it was pretty unique and special.
And how? So you were doing the van stab high thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, which looks like quite an operation. Looks like there's quite a lot going on. A lot of surfers, a lot of different.
Yeah.
How is that? Like, how is? Was that pretty? Because you were judging, right?
Yes, yeah. So myself and Nathan Fletcher were the kind of like the contest directors slash judges. Um, Obviously he's got like a pretty amazing history in terms of like progressive surfing and that, and his brother and all that. But um, yeah, it was cool because it was like you got to go to this so-called event, but you didn't have to actually even compete in it. So that was kind of took the pressure off because I'm spending most of my time not out the water. I'm not trying to go for like big airs and stuff. It's I mean, so yeah, it was cool because I guess it's the first time they've had that event out of just like the wave pools and that. And I mean, obviously, what better place to be than the Mentawais, because obviously the waves are pretty amazing. And it was funny though too, because like we were obviously chasing waves where they could do really good airs, and the whole time, like every day, it's like, oh, the whole decision of where to go revolves around like, is the wind going to be like unsure, if it's going to be like good for airs. And you know it's the first time in my life I heard people going, okay, we can't go there because it's going to be offshore and barreling. Like it was quite a trip for as a surf to kind of have that sort of mindset. um but it worked out well. We got a little bit of
That's
everything,
hilarious.
and yeah. But yeah, the guys were amazing. It was cool to see them just go for massive airs. It was pretty um, it's kind of intimidating seeing how big those guys go. You don't even want to try anything because it's like it's going to be small compared to that. But yeah,
So as like you said, kind of nominal contest directors, judge you and Nathan. Like, what were you looking for? Were you was the criteria that you guys worked on together, or how did that side of things work?
well, I can't even remember the criteria now, but I think a lot of it was progression, and then I guess from my side, I was really looking at like style and execution. Just like obviously something that looks really good, but is done with ease or just with like a rad style, and obviously just the way you kind of landing your airs and stuff nice and smoothly and controlled. Um, and then yeah, I think from Nathan's side, like progression and obviously height and all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Height, progression, style, and I mean if it was like a rotation, obviously rotation as well. And yeah, just that like smooth, clean landing kind of thing.
So did anyone particularly impress you? Anyone take you by surprise, like on that one?
Yeah, we had those two Indonesian kids, Rio and Bronson, and they surprised me a lot. I mean, they it's amazing to see how. I mean, they're definitely leading the charge as like surfers from Indonesia. As I mean, they surf so well, and the airs that they were doing were pretty amazing. And then also it was really cool to be. I've always seen Matt Miola. I've always seen his stuff on social media or online, but I've never actually been on a trip with him, and it was pretty wild. Like I mean, because everyone else is like they free surf or they do contests, and then they every now and again do air contests. But I feel like he's like very much an air guy, and to be able to surf with him and watch him in real life was pretty amazing because yeah, he wasn't going for those like small tiny sections. He was just going for on the gnarlier sections that he could like put his board up there and just go. It was wild to watch, and but it was amazing. It was pretty cool to see him just like go to work and try some really big airs.
Yeah, I watched the edit earlier, and yeah, definitely comes across.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
they call it like they're like a surfing surfer in the caption as well. It's
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I'll put a link to it because I think yeah, I think people will be pretty stoked to see it really. And there's a few more
yeah,
episodes coming out in the next couple of weeks, right? Yeah.
yeah,
So you've been like, obviously we were talking about a bit about COVID and the fact that you've been at home for quite a lot of this year, and I was really interested in chatting to you about some of the things you've been working on during that time, because because obviously the stuff that you do, that the projects that you work on, seem to be quite considered, and you look like you're trying to tell particular stories, and highlight different areas of surf
Mhm.
culture.
Thanks.
And you've done, yeah, I mean, it really comes across like, and so you've done the Juju surf club, right, with Zelty, your wife.
Yes.
So how did that come about, and what's the background to that?
Well, yeah. So I mean, that's been a quite a long time coming. I mean, together we both, my wife and I, we've spoken about it for quite a long time. Just always, I guess, with we always had it in the back of our minds to just find a way to give back, and also just like raise awareness. Um, and there's just, I mean, as a surfer, we're so fortunate and so blessed, like to be able to travel the world and surf, and just you get to do all these cool things like collaborations with bands and other people. And it's just like, and obviously like through being influenced by guys like the Godowskis brothers who have positive vibe warriors, and just seeing how, even if it's not them, I mean, just the message that they send is really cool, and it's just a small thing that makes such a big difference. And I've worked on projects with them before where the board drive that we did for South Africa, and we got like over 750 surfboards or something, and just like just really into how such a small things like that can make such a big difference. And then obviously now with COVID, I mean, I was in South Africa especially, I mean all over the world, it's been, for those who aren't as fortunate, it's been a really tough time. And it's also been hard because it's when you're locked at home or whatever, and you don't have a job, or it's kind of hard to make do and to support your family and all that kind of stuff. And so I guess it was kind of perfect because we're stuck at home and we had some time on our hands, and we could really actually put some thought and actually commit to something. And even if it's not that successful, we could at least just put something out there, because I feel like it's the least we could do. um and yeah, I mean, it's all based around creating awareness about different surf organizations or individuals in Africa. Um, and then just because I feel like I've along my travels, I've met so many cool people and so many rad organizations, and there are a lot of people willing to help out there. So just try and create a space where you can kind of you know let people know about them and what they do. And then with that, trying to, like we did the Tawa slow tide, that was, we got the proceeds donated to two organizations, Waves for Change and Surf Pub. So yeah, we're pretty much just going to be trying to do things like that, and then ideally, maybe once a year we'll be able to, try and set up a surf site at one of these, um, through one of these organizations, or just help them to, keep surfing alive then. And just, I don't know, again, like also surfing, I feel like it's been such a positive and amazing thing for people and communities all over Africa. So I think it's all about just sharing that and spreading that and keeping that alive, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the common themes in a lot of the projects that you do seems to be that telling these alternative stories, and finding these different areas of the culture, essentially, because as we know, the if you call it like mainstream surf culture, it's quite a well told story, isn't it, that
Yeah.
focuses on like the same areas of the world, the same types of people, the same travels, the same routes, the same destinations. And obviously, you know
Yeah.
there's much more to it than that. um and when you couple that with the fact that you tell these different stories, and they give new people and different demographics and different people who might not be exposed to surfing in the usual channels like a chance to sort of get into it, then it's a powerful thing, isn't it? It's a powerful way of 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 changing things, really.
Oh no, definitely, of course.
Is that something that you, because you mentioned, like the fact that you've traveled so much, and is your travel kind of informed that? Because one of the things that you notice when you do a lot of traveling with surfing and snowboarding or whatever, skateboarding, is you never really get, unless you look hard, you don't really get like a great insight into places,
Yeah,
like, because you might come in, surf a wave, go to one place, and then just
yeah,
leave again, and it's all geared towards a particular thing. You almost have to work a bit harder, don't you, to sort of find out a bit more about different locations,
uh,
and the reality of life for people that actually live in these places.
completely. And then yeah, at the same time, it's also what you see when you watch surf films and stuff. Like you don't really get too much from the actual place. So I mean, obviously that's from my side. It's been a big thing too. Is like I guess like the different projects and stuff. Been trying to be as inclusive as possible. Just because I feel like when you do take the time and you do get to meet the people and understand and all the little things that add to making a great trip, like the music, the culture. I feel like that sort of side of it hasn't been included too much in surf forms and things like that. So I guess like a big thing is just trying to give those people a sort of voice or just a little platform to kind of share their story. And I mean, because essentially it makes your time there so great as well. So it's like you just want to share that with everyone. And yeah,
Was that the thinking behind a project like New Rhythmo then? Like to try and kind of package all of these different elements that we're talking about, obviously surfing clearly, but then,
yeah,
like shine a bit of a light on that part of the world, and also the cultural side with the music as well. Because, when you look at a project like that, it's a complete package, isn't it? And it's showcasing these different communities, these different approaches to surf culture that we're talking about.
yeah.
Is that how you approach it? Like, well, how can we tell a different story that encapsulates this scene or area in a particular way?
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, I guess, there's so much, especially with surfing now, it's like I mean, you see so many, you see people post clips of waves and airs and all that kind of stuff constantly on Instagram. I mean, you see that throughout the day, but I think, I think it's also nice to kind of give people who maybe aren't that, maybe just not only the surf community because I feel like if you dive deeper into other people's stories and the culture and the music and stuff, it's people can relate a little bit more. And I mean, you can see that with you look at like Weird Waves or something. It's like it's not really that much about the waves, but it's also just about the people around there and their own little version of their surf culture or their culture over there. And I think it's just makes it a little bit more interesting. And um you know I know for like New Rhythm and stuff, it was obviously trying to get swat, like chase a swell, but it was more like let's rather find someone who plays good music who we can meet up with, and then if we get waves along the way, then that's great. um it's kind of nice, it takes the pressure off trying to score perfect waves, which I mean we actually did really get good waves. But yeah, I mean, it's just about all those different ingredients and sharing them because yeah, I think it's important and it makes, I don't know, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think Weird Waves is a great example, isn't it? Because, like you say, it's just about finding a good story ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah,
And if you and also representing all the different sides, all the different sides of surf culture.
yeah,
Because again, the the like you say, the depictions that you see, yeah, great, like showcasing amazing waves and amazing surfers in amazing locations. Like, everyone's always going to love that. There's always a place for that.
yeah,
But the reality of global surf culture is it's a huge broad church, isn't it? There's, for everyone that's lucky enough to surf those waves, there's people
yeah,
surfing very different scenes and having a different experience of that surf culture.
Exactly.
And it, if you put a good story at the heart of it, then it should travel anyway, shouldn't it? Really.
Yeah, people can relate. People can they can see. Yeah, I mean, it's just cool because everyone's got their own little take on surf culture, so it's nice. Yeah, I feel like it's cool for other people to see that too.
Have you got anything that you working on, or any ideas at the minute? Like any spots to base something like this around?
Yeah, I've been super fortunate.
Obviously, places rather than actual spots.
Yeah, um, yeah, I was super fortunate now this year because obviously, um, planning on doing a couple of trips and that, but obviously that didn't happen because of COVID. But thankfully, vans were really cool because they still let me work on some projects, but just at home. And we had a pretty amazing winter, which was pretty special. Obviously, no one else coming in, which was great. And I mean, we had amazing waves, but then we got met up with some really cool musicians, and um, yeah, did a really cool piece on pretty much home, which I think will be coming out next year. But that was really fun, being able to work on something, and we actually kind of was directing it from afar, which was pretty interesting to try and like direct from Australia, kind of like via lots of calls and FaceTime chats. But um, I guess that's the way the world's been going this year. It's been pretty different, so it was exciting to do things differently, and I think we still made do really well, and I'm excited that it was still a productive year, so it should be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it. It looked like you had a lot of different things going on, you know, and use the time wisely. Are you somebody that, where I've kind of read quite a few of the old interviews and
Yeah.
seen you interviewed on different podcasts and stuff, and there's quite often this line of question about like your interest in creativity, and like how important is that to you? Like, is that something that, are you somebody that's always got needs to have different projects on the go, like to find these kind of outlets for
Oh,
creativity? Because it does look like you quite often, quite frequently have like a lot a lot of different projects on the go.
yeah, definitely. I definitely am say I'm someone that needs to be busy or doing something creative. I mean, it's been nice because obviously maybe 2 years ago when I was on tour and stuff, and before that, it was mainly just spending my time, you know, surfing events and stuff like that, and didn't really have too much time to be creative. So these last few years, and obviously joining bands and stuff, and the fun crew that we have, I've been trying to be a lot more, or just been able to, I guess, be a lot more creative. I mean, even now in lockdown, I was, started playing the piano, and uh, maybe a couple of weeks ago, I started sewing. So I've just been doing a lot of fun things just to, I don't know. It's been nice to have time to do those things because always been wanting to, but yeah, I would definitely say I'm the type of person that needs to have a fun project to work on and keep being creative.
So what you've been like sewing, like basically making clothes?
No, no, no. Very, very beginning. I've just had like 2 lessons, and um, I think I made like a tote bag or something. But it's uh, it's super rewarding and like kind of therapeutic. So I obviously would love to get
Yeah,
better.
right.
Yeah, so I'd obviously love to get better, but it's definitely the very beginning stages right now.
Yeah, and piano, because obviously music's like a, well, we were swapping songs, weren't we,
Yeah,
before we did
yeah,
this interview? Like we were swapping different playlists and stuff, and
yeah,
yeah, like because when I was prepping for this, um, obviously I could see that you were posting on Insta like a lot of album covers and a lot of
yeah.
playlists and stuff, and a lot of it was like super like crossover with my taste. It's like, okay. Um, Obviously that's really really important to you though, like music and that the type of music that you're into. Do you, so the piano thing, is that part of that, to kind of, you know, part of that passion?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love listening to music, and obviously, a lot of these projects get to work with some amazing musicians and that. So it's like every time I watch someone play an instrument or just do what they do, it's kind of semi frustrating that don't know how to, play an instrument. So I think that's part of it, really. Just like need to just got to learn and be able to at least play something.
Yeah. Another thing that gets brought up a lot in your interviews is the influence of like your upbringing with your parents, like being super creative and,
Hmm.
running their own agency and kind of, um, yeah, like that being that being something you were brought up with. Do you think that's had an influence in the way that you approach, like the confidence that you seem to have to like to try all these different creative approaches?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my dad, he's always been super, super creative, and you know, growing up, I would just every day just doing fun things with him, and I guess being around like the agency that they worked at, like you just around creative people, and like just a lot of that. And I mean, either you take to it or you don't, and I feel like I really took to it from a young age. Um, and I mean, even now, me and my dad have been just over lockdown, like because you could only stay, my wife and I stayed in our apartment, and then we moved for a couple of weeks to my parents, and they live in Komiki, where there's like a lot more just open space and greenery, and the ocean's right there. So that was nice. And my dad and I decided to, because he's never shaped before, and I've shaped like a couple times before. So we just started shaping in the garage, and um, yeah, so we've just been doing a lot of, I mean, from a young age, I've always been doing a lot of creative things with my dad, and still to this day. So yeah,
How was that? That must have been fun. That sounds like almost like the perfect lockdown project
it was
to,
awesome. Yeah,
just get your head into that with your dad. That sounds rad.
it was cool because I mean, I think before that hadn't surfed for like 50 odd days, so it was like just going crazy, really. And yeah, it was fun. But obviously, South Africa, you don't have access to the best shaping tools, so we just go down to the local hardware store and try and make our own little tools and stuff. And so the boards obviously didn't come out as you would want them to come out, but it was fun. It was really cool to see him enjoy that, and he's obviously super creative, so he took to it quite quickly, and um, he's kind of obsessed now. And yeah, so it's just been, I don't know, it's just super fun. It was just nice to be able to have that, like, after not surfing for so long and not traveling and all that kind of stuff. It was just nice to have that, like, creative outlet that was like, you know, especially with surfing. Like, I don't know, I've missed getting new surfboards too. So I was just like, it was just so fun creating that, and just kind of, yeah, it was rad.
What did you shape?
I was just grabbing different shapes from the garage and literally just tracing outlines. I think I did one of those CI mid lengths. Obviously, it didn't go nearly as good as the real thing. Um,
Right.
so just a couple of those, and then my dad, someone gave him an old. Oh no, someone let us borrow an old Whitmore that had like this. It was like this crazy hull. Bottom, and so he like started messing around with like those kind of bottoms and stuff. So it was fun. It was like yeah, it was really rad.
Yeah. Sounds so. And you're gonna keep. You said you've done a few before, but like, is that something you'll? It's a bit of a path, isn't it? Really, to sort of start getting more and more into shape. And is that something that you think you'll end up dedicating more time to?
Definitely. I mean, now that I've been riding more alternative boards most of the time, it's just, I mean, as a surfer, it's just so nice to kind of, it's so rewarding, and I feel like you understand boards a lot more, and also just you really do appreciate a good board when you get one too, because it's definitely not easy. And but yeah, my wife and I just rented a warehouse space now, so we put a little shaping bay in there too. So that's gonna be ready soon, and gonna just try shape as much as possible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of I was interested in chatting to you about that, about the kind of way that surfing's almost segmenting more and more these days with like different shapes and different styles. And one of the constants from your surfing and the way that that people sort of talk about your surfing is obviously like through the lens of style. And there's quite often almost this feeling that people want you to sort of justify your style in a certain way, or like, it's a point, you know what I mean? It's like it's a constant point of reference. It's a constant talking point,
Yeah.
um which must get quite, I'm not going to say annoying because I doubt it's annoying, but it must get, because obviously it seems like you've always just surfed the way you surf. And you know over the time that you've been surfing, you must have seen that change to the point that this stylistic diversity is now way more apparent. Whether it's types of surfing, whether it's style, whether it's board, whether it's shapes, whatever. Um, and I just wondered how you felt about that, and how you felt about the that kind of constant. Hey, tell me about your style. Like, where's your style come from? You know what I mean? Like,
No,
it is
I
a
get,
thing, isn't
yeah.
it? That people ask you about, and yeah. How does that? How do you sort of handle that?
Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, like with many interviews, you kind of repeat yourself often, and I mean, it is a hard thing to talk. I mean, to talk about, firstly talking about yourself, but then also just like describing how you surf, the way you surf. I mean, I feel like there's for everyone, everyone's different, and everyone's their own sort of. I mean, I guess you have different influences, but I mean, your body's gonna, do it the way that only you can do it,
Yeah,
really.
it's a
So
function. It's a functional thing, isn't it? At the end of the
yeah,
day, it's like it's body language, isn't it? It's how you express yourself physically,
exactly,
which is kind of inherent. And yeah, you can work on your style, but it's kind of there, isn't it? Really, like the building blocks of it.
for sure. I think it's just like a honest expression of yourself, really, in surfing, and it's hard to kind of pinpoint any, I don't know, reasoning behind it. Really, it's like
Yeah. So, and have you ever? Why do you think people are quite keen for you to have a view on it, or to talk about your particular style? Do you, because it often, I guess if I put it a different way, like it often seems as though, because there are certain milestones in your surfing career, and obviously given the history of South Africa, and
yeah,
people almost want your surfing to stand for something more. It's almost like they
yeah,
want it to symbolize something, and then hence they want your opinion on that.
yeah,
Like how, and I'm not asking you for like, hey, tell me about, but I'm more interested in like how that kind of makes you feel. Do you know what I mean? Like that constant theme of like, so the fact that you like are the first non-white African surfer on tour, that's really significant. Like, so should we talk about that? Like,
yeah.
is that something that you feel comfortable with, or is
Um,
that something that you often?
yeah, it's like I mean, it's obviously something I get, I don't know, spoken. I mean, asked quite a lot, and um, I don't know. I think it's a touchy sort of subject, and I mean, for me, I've grown up so privileged, and my parents worked so hard, and then also again, like I say the same thing, like look at there's been Brazilians on tour and stuff, like non-white Brazilians and all that kind of stuff, and um, I kind of just rather look at the surfing, because also when I grew up, I was oblivious to it, but I've had surfing was there was no like divide or color or anything like that. Um, so I've kind of just live my whole life more just focused on whatever it was that I was doing, and but at the same time, there's obviously history, and you have to respect that, and obviously proud to be who I am, but um, yeah, I feel like I also feel like I'm want to be a part of the generation that doesn't really look at that, you know, and that's not a
Yeah,
thing.
that makes sense. It's kind of
Yeah.
why I asked the question, actually. Like, the history is obviously so important, as you say, and so significant, let's just say, that it's understandable that people do want you to have an opinion on it and do want you to comment on it,
Mm.
and imbue your achievements with that significance. But yeah, it just looked like sometimes it almost might get a bit lonely being put in that position where you need to have an opinion on it, if that makes sense, or like,
Yeah.
you know just to constantly be saying, oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, right, sure,
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I mean, everyone's different. Everyone has their unique certain characteristics about them, or and obviously it's something that get asked a lot, and but I mean, I don't mind. I guess I just there's obviously more to talk about, but um, yeah, it is funny. It's like you feel like you're meant to be. Um, I don't know. It's a hard one to answer, really, but because there's so many ways to look at it, and everyone looks at it in their own way. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's like when you get asked it a lot, it's like you kind of have to. It's weird answering it over and over again.
I mean, I guess the other thing is, the other thing is as well, like, the arc of your career as well is also pretty interesting, isn't it? Because, for in the context of this conversation, because making the tour big deal, and then taking a different direction as well is also, like, in the surf narrative context. Like, again, it's something that people are really interested, aren't they? To sort
Yeah,
of like lead, that's a classic surf thing, isn't it? Oh, right, free surfer left the tour, like,
yeah,
and what, and again, it's almost like when I look at your career, it looks like those have just been quite natural things, like you've kind of like
yeah.
followed the things that were interesting to you at the time.
Well, I mean, growing up, especially in South Africa, the industry and stuff, like the only way to really, I feel like I was maybe when I was still competing and starting to compete internationally was like maybe just after the slow decline of like the surf industry being pretty um doing really well, and like when Geordie got his big contracts and all that kind of stuff. And I guess the only way to be a success or just be able to surf for a living or be able to travel the world was to to do the QS and then obviously try and qualify for the world tour. Um,
Yeah, that's the path, basically.
that's the only way that you're gonna, I guess, get paid or be able to do it for a living. And did that for so many years, and but over that, like maybe call it like 2 years before qualifying, or 2 3 years before. It's like do the QS, and you've been doing it for like 8 years or something, and then slowly but surely started doing more free surf trips and stuff. Um, and then yeah, finally got into tour, which was amazing, and obviously one of my biggest achievements. But then, and yeah, like I don't know, after a year, it's crazy. I mean, the amount of professionalism and the athletes that are on that tour is pretty insane. Like there's so much dedication and so much hard work. Um, and I feel like personally, I kind of have been doing that for a lot of years, and that was like, it felt like it was time for like a different route. I mean, obviously it would have been nice to stay on tour and stuff and compete for longer, but wasn't necessarily going for like world titles. Like I knew that wasn't really going to be my thing, and obviously so fortunate to be able to take the other route and be able to be go into free surfing, but and then again just to be able to finally getting the chance to like be creative again. And so yeah, it has happened fairly naturally, and I feel like everything happened and with great timing and that. So I'm pretty stoked with how everything's planned out.
Yeah, I bet. And that's what it kind of looked like, you know, the fact that, yeah, what a brilliant experience, but also this is a new experience, isn't it? And you know, to bring it back to what we were talking about at the beginning, like now you've got this platform that you can almost follow the things that you're interested in now, you know, whether it's like telling these stories or like
Yeah,
the creative stuff, like linking it all together. That you must be stoked on that, you know, to be like, right, great, I'm in this position now where I can kind of surf the way I want to surf on my own terms,
yeah.
and also have a platform to do these projects with people that I want to work with. I mean, that's great. And like you say, it's not like that happened overnight, is it?
No, definitely not. It's been, yeah. I mean, just the QS alone has been many, many, many years of just like the same thing over and over again. But it's, I mean, great memories and great times. So definitely can't complain. And I wouldn't really change anything because right now I'm like just so stoked with what's like what I've been doing now. It's like just so refreshing. And I don't know, a lot of surfers, I feel, unfortunately, you know, kind of get in this rhythm of just the same thing year in and year out. So it's fun to be able and refreshing to be able to do different things and, you know, have different approaches to, I don't know, just being creative. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, great to be able to sort of get to that point where you can have the luxury to choose. I mean, that's the battle, isn't it? You know, if you can do
Yeah.
that, then you've kind of won, really. You know,
Thanks.
if you can get up and decide, right, I'm going to put my energies into this area that I'm interested in, then that's, I don't know, that's success, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you know, nearly at the end of 2020. Let's, you know, tick that one off. 2021. So what's the plan? Have you got some? I'm sure from what we've been saying, you've got some projects to take care of or ambitions to fulfill. So anything, you know,
um,
anything that you're really looking forward to?
yeah, it's tricky. I mean, a few months ago, I was like, okay, cool. December's gonna come, and then 1st of Jan, everything's just gonna go back to normal. But I don't feel like it is gonna go quite back to normal just yet. But yeah, I definitely have some fun things in the works, and I definitely am excited to get traveling again. And as much as it's been amazing, kind of just experiencing home and being productive over here, I'm excited to go explore a little bit more and just tell some cool stories and meet some cool people and hopefully, yeah, just create some cool stuff. Really.
So there you go. That was me and Mikey, and I hope you enjoyed it. Now, I did think at the time, and I think that now, having listened back to it, that would have been one of those interviews would have really benefited from being in person. Long-term listeners of the podcast will know I was pretty opinionated about the fact that you really needed to do these episodes in person, and that doing them in Zoom, this is pre-COVID, obviously, doing them on Skype even, because you'd even heard of Zoom before COVID, was a bit of a cop-out, really. But then, you know, fate dealt the hand that it did. So I've done the last 6 months via Zoom. I'm pretty happy with how most of those episodes have gone, but occasionally you are challenged by dodgy internet connections, as we were at points there, and also by the additional barrier that Zoom creates, and which can affect the flow of a conversation. That's not a criticism of Mikey or me, come to that. As you probably gathered, he's unfailingly polite, and it was a perfectly pleasant conversation. I just do think it would have worked out better in person. And the reason for that is because, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, one thing I'd noticed during my research is that Mikey appears to be a lens through which to discuss a lot of different issues, style, diversity, and so on. And I've often got the impression that although he very politely answers those same questions he gets in every single interview over and over again, I just got the impression he was quite ambivalent about a lot of it, but was far too polite to say so. And that was the territory I really wanted to explore. I think we sort of got there in the end. But again, I think if we'd have been together in person, we would have been able to explore that side of his personality in that area much more thoroughly. Anyway, that's how it went. That's what I got. As a journalist, it was slightly frustrating because I could glimpse the potential interview that's in there, but you can't win them all, eh? And I also think, and forgive me while I warm to my housekeeping corner theme, that this interview is fairly emblematic of the position of the podcast generally at this point. I've been doing this for pretty much 4 years now. And in that time, I've built up a global audience, which is far beyond anything I ever expected to achieve with this podcast, which is brilliant. And I'm grateful to everybody who supported the show. But, that said, I'm not exactly Rich Roll. I'm fortunate that a lot of guests have heard of the show. I'm not saying I want to be Rich Roll, by the way. I quite like Rich as it goes. But, like that, those podcasts, this is the point, have reached a point of popularity and profile that you just go on them if you're doing the rounds. And people know what they are. And they know what's expected. Now, I'm fortunate that a lot of guests have heard of this podcast and even listened to it, which is something I'm really stoked about. And in those cases, and the recent Patagonia episode is a really good example of that, those guests know how it unfolds and they know what they should bring to it if we're going to have a successful conversation, which again is an incredibly privileged position for me to be in. And just to reiterate, way beyond what I ever thought would happen with this thing. And that's incidentally also why I do get guests even turning me down quite frequently. Owen Tozer being an example. I've asked Owen to come on this show a lot of times, but he just doesn't want to go there. And there's a lot of guests that do know the pod and they just don't want to have the type of conversation that usually happens on here, which is fine. Whatever, that's the way it goes. But then there are guests such as Mikey, who quite naturally had never heard of the podcast, never listened to it, and he's basically doing it because his sponsors have asked him to. And that's fine, but the upshot is that it can lead to a particular type of conversation, which is, again, perfectly fine. And if you're a fan, I'm sure it's just nice to hear your idols speak, but is often not as interesting, revealing, or insightful as some of those that I've been lucky enough to carry out with guests who, like I say, either know it or are just, prepared to go there a little bit. And that does lead to a conundrum in how I approach booking guests, which I might explain because it's probably interesting if you're a long-term listener. There's no doubt that the bigger names lead to much higher listener numbers. The most popular episodes ever are Jamie Thomas, Alex Honnold, Mick Fanning, who else is Terrier, obviously. Chaz Smith is up there, but he's got a huge profile. He really promoted it, which is great. The Beach Grit did a piece on it. That really drove numbers. What a twat, drove numbers. That's such a twatish internet thing to say, isn't it? Anyway, that meant a lot of people listened to it, should I say. Fucking hell, I'll be deep diving in a minute. But, there is the temptation to go down the junket route and just take as many big names as possible. But then I've just got my doubts if that actually makes for a good podcast or leads to the type of conversation I'm interested in exploring and which people seem to respond to. If you've listened for a while, you've probably noticed that this last year I've chosen guests that definitely aren't high profile, but it seems to me you're going to hit that sweet spot of interesting conversation, interesting story. But they're not often the big names, which, like I say, are the things that drive these bigger listener numbers. And when I do polls on Instagram over at my account at We Look Sideways, which I frequently do, I often ask for guest suggestions because it's a good gauge to see, what people are thinking. And the usual names always come up. Kelly Slater, Tom Penny, Tony Hawk, Mark Gonzalez, the big hitters. But my view is there's just not really any point in doing that until they kind of know what it is, like how it's going to go down and see the value of doing it. If you look at Kelly Slater, I don't know if you've heard any of the stuff he's done recently, but it's pretty dry. Like, it's pretty guarded. I mean, he does some where he is relaxed, fair enough, but a lot of them it's just like he's on the promo rounds and it's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to do this podcast now. Great. Nice one. Yeah. And again, you might have a perfectly acceptable surface level conversation, but I do have my doubts that it's going to deliver the goods that I'm looking for when I do these conversations. And here it comes. That's one of the reasons why I'm always banging on about this. Follow me on Instagram, sign up for the newsletter, sharing episodes that you enjoy, all that stuff, which gets fucking boring when you listen to podcasts and everyone's like, oh yeah, give me a review on this, that and the other and all that. Subscribe. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, all that shit. But it does really help. The more people I approach who've actually heard of this thing, the sooner I'll be able to, get your Kelly Slaters, your Tony Hawks, your Tom Pennies, like whoever it is, the people, because they'll be like, oh yeah, that's that thing. I should probably go on it, and I've listened to it, and it's pretty decent, and it is moving in that direction. And fuck me, don't get me wrong, I don't really care. Like I've always, it's not like I started this thing so I could have those types of conversation. I'm just saying that occasionally you do get this situation where that conundrum, as I referred to it, just leads to an episode like that, which was fine. It was, and I might even be overanalyzing it. Wouldn't be nothing new there. But yeah, I just think I was thinking about it on the, when I was putting this one together, musing on the whole process and podcasting generally, just seemed like a bit of classic housekeeping corner fodder. So there you go. So let me know what you reckon anyway. And, you can, I'm going to say it again. If you do enjoy this, then please, follow me at We Look Sideways on Instagram. Sign up for the newsletter. I send out every fortnight even. You can do that on the website, www.wearelookingsideways.com. Share the episodes that you like. Tell people. It does really, really help. And, also give me some feedback. Always enjoy that. Email to podcast@wearelookingsideways.com. Send me a direct message on Instagram. I do read them all. I try to reply to them all. And I often end up sharing them on stories. So be warned. Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll be back next week with another one. So until then, nice one.